Good.
Yeah, it's rolling. Yeah, I think it's going now.
Okay, I want to say, first of all, thank you for everybody's response today with respects to our officer injured in the line of duty the other night. To recap for everyone, Monday morning, that was June 10th, at about 1:23 a.m., our deputies responded to a 911 call. This 911 call was initiated by Mr. Andrew Ryan Cato at the address of 7504 Skippers Trace in Oak Ridge. The deputies responded to that residence and found Mr. Cato in the driveway area of the home. He was somewhat combative and argumentative with the officers. Due to that, a struggle ensued, and one of our officers was shot during that struggle. Mr. Cato, as well as that officer, were taken to the hospital and treated for their injuries, and shortly thereafter they were released. As a result of this encounter, Mr. Cato has been arrested and charged with felony assault on a law enforcement officer with a firearm, 3 counts of assault on a law enforcement officer, and 1 count of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious injury. Mr. Cato is still being held in the Guilford County Detention Facility here in Greensboro. He's being held without bond, and he'll remain there until released by the courts. I'm willing to answer some questions. We obviously have some details that we're going to be very careful about. We want to maintain the integrity of the investigation and any subsequent prosecution. Yes, sir.
Hi, sir. Thank you for your time today. My name is Joshua Davis. I'm with Channel 12. You had mentioned that when deputies responded to that address on Skipper's Trace, that Mr. Cato was combative. Can you elaborate what exactly that means?
Yeah, so we have an involvement with Mr. Cato there in the driveway where he's assaultive, he's combative, he's very argumentative, and the officers ended up being involved in a physical struggle with Mr. Cato. That physical struggle, during that struggle, was very violent. This firearm was discharged. The encounter with Mr. Cato is being investigated by our Professional Standards Division. That's our internal affairs. It's currently under investigation, and we do that to ensure that we've used proper amount of force, it was reasonable, it was an objective use of force, we followed all of our policies. And due to that, I'm not going to comment any further on that.
In court yesterday, it said that Mr. Cato has had other run-ins with law enforcement. Are you able to tell us a little bit about some of the calls that y'all have responded to at his home or in that neighborhood?
Yeah, in limited detail, so we have, I believe, 4 calls in the last month, within the last month, out to his residence. Most of those calls involve four-wheelers, people riding dirt bikes in the roadway and or out behind his house. Pretty general calls like that. I think there's been 4 total, and all of those happened, if I'm not mistaken, within the month of June.
And he made those calls?
Yes, as far as I know, he did.
Okay.
Yes.
For clarification purposes, the gun that went off, did that gun belong to Mr. Cato, or did that belong to a deputy?
So again, we're going to maintain some integrity to this investigation with respect to some of these questions. That was a gun that was involved during this struggle, okay? During the struggle, that gun went off. It was a very violent encounter, and during that struggle with Mr. Cato, this firearm did go off. I want to maintain some integrity to the investigation with respect to that question. It was a .556 caliber round, if that helps you a little bit, okay?
Has he been argumentative and combative in other calls to the residents prior to this?
I don't have anything to comment about that.
Any more questions? How's the officer who was shot?
So that officer's fine. He was released that day. Obviously, he's in some pain and some discomfort, but he was a very brave officer. He's young, 29-year-old man. He's doing fine. He's in good spirits.
And are we able to explain how Mr. Cato received the physical altercation, or the physical lacerations in the black eye that he got?
So sure, obviously in the arrest photo, you'll see some injuries to Mr. Cato. We had a use of force encounter with Mr. Cato, and we are investigating that. And due to that, I'm not going to release any detailed information about that.
The deputy that he tried to get the firearm from, did they suffer any injuries?
No, the only 2 people that we took to the hospital that night were Mr. Cato and Master Corporal Brim.
Are you able to confirm at all if the deputies involved in this are on paid leave or something similar?
So, in general, when a deputy's involved in an incident like this, they usually are on leave until we feel like they're prepared to come back to duty. There's been an injury in this, obviously, to the deputy, want to make sure that he's healthy and prepared to come back before we bring him back.
Are you able to tell us if Mr. Cato had a firearm in his hand when y'all arrived on scene?
I'm not able to tell you that.
Do we have any more clarity as to why, or to Mr. Cato's reason for calling?
No, the 911 call was specifically made by Mr. Cato. He requested that we come to his house, and when the dispatchers asked him why, his response was, "You'll find out when you get here." And that's all. That's the only information we have from the 911 call from Mr. Cato.
Have deputies been called to the home before for domestic violence issues?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you know if Mr. Cato has a criminal history up until now? We understand that there's a possibility he came originally from Virginia. Does he have something there by any chance?
I'm not going to speak to that criminal history. I'm not aware that he has one anyways, but I'm not willing to speak to that.
One more question?
With a situation like that, knowing the 911 call, he said, all he's given is, when you guys will find out when you get here. How difficult is that for you guys to plan or prepare for going into this, because you don't obviously know what he is capable of or what he is possibly planning?
That's a good question. So, very difficult. We try to respond to those types of calls with multiple officers, which we did in this case, obviously. The approaches to the residences are very careful and planned when we come to a house like that. But yeah, it's super difficult because you don't really know what you are going to encounter. Our goal is to be as objective about those responses as possible, but also very responsible because we're concerned with the safety of not only the public but our officers.
Ma'am, did you have any questions you wanted to ask? Okay.
I do have one more. Can you confirm the total amount of deputies that responded to this address?
The initial response or the overall response?
The overall.
I can't give you an answer to that, but a lot of deputies responded. It's a huge task on a department to respond to an incident like that. Those crime scenes can take hours upon hours, sometimes even days to handle. So we have to provide security to that crime scene, collect evidence, interview people, canvass neighborhoods. There's just a lot of different things that have to happen in an investigation like that. Yes, sir.
So how many came to the initial response?
The initial response was 3 officers.
3.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.